Foreign Secretary Lisa Nandy joins me now. Good morning. Lovely to have you with us in the studio.
Exciting.
Makes a change, doesn't it?
It's the furthest I've travelled as Shadow Foreign Secretary in 14 months.
Is it?
Pretty much, yeah.
How does it feel?
It's exciting to be out and about again, but I'm quite looking forward to the day that I can go abroad and start meeting some leaders.
Yeah, well, we've got the leaders here at the moment with the G7. Of course, that begins today. And one of the things coming out of that is this 100 million vaccines going out to as a surplus as part of this COVAX project. What would Labour have offered?
Well, I think it's a very welcome agreement, and it's the start of what has to be a much more comprehensive agreement over the next 2 days. The Prime Minister has said he wants to vaccinate the world by the end of next year. That is the right target in our view, but that means that we need not just ambition but a plan to ramp up production and capacity in countries where they simply don't have the capacity to produce the vaccine. We need to increase the global supply, and we need to make sure that we reach an agreement about how we're going to fund healthcare services in countries where they just can't simply get the vaccine out to people.
Now, you say you agree with the idea of vaccinating over the next year. Our political correspondent Adam Fleming was saying earlier that there have been complaints or concerns by countries saying we need the vaccine now. But you agree with Boris Johnson's strategy, this government strategy, that over the next year is the correct one.
Well, this morning he said that he's going to make some of the surplus doses available in coming weeks. I think it certainly makes sense to get the vaccine to frontline healthcare workers in countries where they're just simply overwhelmed at the moment. But we've also got to do our bit to break the transmission chain here. We're sitting here in Salford, not very far from here. We've seen soaring infection rates amongst young people in particular, so we've got to get them vaccinated as well and do our bit for the rest of the world. Just seems to me that what we need over the next 48 hours is not just ambitions to get the world vaccinated, but an actual plan. That would be in Britain's interest as well. The International Monetary Fund says that this would represent the biggest return on investment in modern history for wealthier countries because of the economic fallout if we don't deal with this. So there's a moral case, there's a health case, but there's an economic case for Britain as well, and the Prime Minister absolutely has to deliver this.
So you're pretty much in agreement with the way the government is handling this now?
Well, the government has an ambition but not a plan, and the problem is that it goes into these negotiations
he has a plan. He said that he's going to be delivering these vaccines out over the coming year.
Well, he says he wants to, but he doesn't have a plan to ramp up production and capacity, to invest in that in developing countries. He doesn't have any kind of agreement on raw materials that are needed to develop those vaccines. He's just cut the aid budget, the international aid budget, that would have helped to make sure that that vaccine could actually be delivered in those countries by frontline healthcare professionals. And he goes into this negotiation in such a weakened state. He's still at loggerheads with the European Union. He's had a rebuke from the President of the United States over the handling of Northern Ireland.
Well, according to the BBC, we must be clear about this, because according to the BBC, this wasn't a rebuke or a démarche, as it's called. It was a warning. So there is some doubt as to how hard the US has gone in. But actually, what we've seen in terms of the press ahead of this is that the relationship between the UK and the US is still pretty strong, and still on very firm footing. And let's not forget, the President of the United States has chosen to visit the UK as his first foreign trip.
Yeah, it's really good news for Britain that he's here. He's chosen to come to the G7 summit as his first major international summit in order to step forward and say the United States is back and we're going to show leadership on issues like COVID-19, but also issues like climate change that are really important for Britain as well. So this is really good news. And what we saw yesterday was the Prime Minister backing down over the mess that he's created in Northern Ireland, reaffirming in a very welcome way the commitment to upholding the Good Friday Agreement. The Prime Minister has been threatening to tear up international agreements that he himself negotiated, the Northern Ireland Protocol, for the last few months. That's what is at the root of the loggerhead that he's at with the European Union. This is a terrible development for Britain. It puts the Good Friday Agreement at jeopardy. It threatens our relationships with our closest neighbours. And what we've seen over the last few days is that it also undermines our relationship with the United States. And what was welcome about yesterday is that the Prime Minister seemed to back down on that. He seemed to accept that in order to have a good relationship with the United States, we need to have a much less antagonistic relationship with our friends in Ireland and in the European Union, and we may just get to a point where he reverses the damage that has been done over the next 48 hours and starts to build relationships with people again across the world.
What's your answer to it? Because the Brexit agreement is signed, sealed and delivered.
Well,
what's your answer to it?
I think the first thing that we should do is negotiate a food standards agreement with the European Union. That would reduce a lot of the friction that has been created by the deal that the Prime Minister negotiated, which places a border down the Irish Sea. And with creativity and goodwill, I think that is possible. The United States clearly thinks it's possible, and listening to EU leaders yesterday, I think they think it is possible as well.
Well, just want a quick word, of course, on Wigan, your constituency as well. You say you haven't been out of it for 14 months. Ben, our business reporter, is out and about talking to pubs, looking at the business, the hospitality business as well. Where are you when it comes to opening up now? This announcement is coming, as we always knew, to tell us what would be happening. What would you want to see? Do you agree that actually caution and temperance is of the essence?
I do. I'm desperate to unlock, I think, like everybody else, to try and get back to normal. Here in the Northwest, lots of us have been in almost continuous lockdown for nearly a year and a half now, and it's just really starting to take its toll. But I think if we proceed too fast, if the government can't get control of the new variant that has emerged that is more transmissible than previous variants, then we could end up in another lockdown, and this has got to be the last lockdown.
So you support a delay?
Well, I think it's highly unlikely that they're going to go ahead with full unlocking on the 21st. I gather there's still a debate about that going on in government. But I think the thing that the government ought to do very, very quickly is get the support to local areas that is needed. It can't be right that we're still begging for help and finding a closed door in government. You know, Bury, Bolton, Blackburn have all asked for more flexibility, more assistance, and that ought to be forthcoming. But also, we've got to get control of the borders. The amber list is just a nonsense. We've got people coming back into the country who aren't quarantining. We can't be saying to people, you can't go and see your family, you can't hug your grandchildren, but yet we're allowing people to come in and out of the country in such a confusing, chaotic way. I must make
clear, the government, many ministers have said, we do not advise you to travel, although it's not the rules or the law. Lisa Nandy, thank you very much. Glad you could get out to Salford, at least, if not abroad. Thank you very much, Shadow Foreign Secretary. Time now is 21.